amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
Yes, I'm now being joined by the man in the eye of the storm, former Senate Minority Leader and the Abia South Senatorial candidate for the 2023 polls, but now this time around in the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Senator Enyinaya Abaribe. Senator Abaribe, your colleagues were just missing you out there. They didn't know how to manage their feelings. I mean, the emotions, considering your enormous contributions to the PDP and, of course, the Senate, helping the Senate President to stabilize in your role as Minority Leader and all of that. It looks like everybody just was missing you. But here you are. It looks like you are now the Minority Leader of ABGA.
Yes. I'm the Minority Leader of ABGA.
In the Senate now.
I'm still part of the minority. Yeah, my colleagues, I think they felt that it wasn't really following the proper procedure, which of course is right. I met with them after the what happened on the floor, and I explained to them again, because I think the explanation is very clear in my letter of why I had to leave the People's Democratic Party. And essentially, let's just put it this way. We stay in a milieu in which we think we ought to be going forward, and we ought to be doing much better than before. But it was unfortunate in this last primaries that we got to a situation in which, like a journalist, Ike Abonyi, said in one of his write-ups, he said that those morally challenging things seem to find a natural habitat in PDP. You know, and that was what we felt. I don't think anybody in PDP will say that I did not do my work very well as a minority leader. And what we challenged APC about, and what we challenged the presidency about, is due process and doing exactly the right thing, only to come back to my party and for a matter of congresses and primaries, and the party does exactly the same thing that we are challenging others about. And so I think it was Booker T. Washington says that it's better that you go into the company of the people that you think are better for you than just continue to wallow in the company of those who think that at every time anything goes. I just refuse to accept anything goes. I think what happens in Nigeria is simple too, especially in politics, and it's like this. Okay, if you can't beat them, you join them. So something wrong happens and they say, don't worry about it, just join them. So you join them and start doing the wrong thing. And then when you do the wrong thing, how will Nigeria progress? And that is the issue that confronts each and every one of us wherever we find ourselves in the country. Will you decide to do the right thing so that the country will be better for it? Or will you just do the wrong thing?
In your own context, what is the right thing?
Now, let me say what is the right thing in terms of what we did.
Yeah.
Now, how did we get to where we got to in the PDP? We had an electoral act that made a specification. I do not agree with the interpretation given that elected delegates mean only those that you elect that time, the so-called
that one has been controversial.
Yeah, I think that no. So let's put yes. On top of that, for the election of that three-man thing, there are also guidelines of the party that the party ought to follow. And what happened in Abia State was that those guidelines were not followed. And we representation, because usually they will tell you, oh, you know, you have to follow party guidelines. So we made the representation from the state to the national. We met with the national chairman and the national working committee, and we made a presentation and said, these guidelines were not followed. Therefore, the 3-man ad hoc that you have produced are not the proper ones, and we want a review. And nobody talked to us.
Yeah, I remember when you came to...
I came here, and I was the person that we had a press conference, and we said that. And I will tell you one thing, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. The whole of us that did that press conference, we later went to go and see the national chairman of the party. And we sat with him, and we said, sir, these are the processes, these are the things that were serially breached. And we think that something ought to be done. And he looked at us and said, okay, I've heard you.
And that was it.
And that was it.
Well,
and then they went back, and then they just continued. And so we said, okay, if I know that a process is stacked against me, and why would I go and I'm complaining about the process? So why would I continue to give credit to that process by being part of it? And so prior to that time, I wrote a letter. Most of the other people wrote letters and said, we are not part of this process. Just like
you exited from the primaries.
We exited so that you cannot now say. But look at the funny thing that happened. Even though we exited from the primaries, they still turned around and
allocated figures to you. I mean, I was laughing when I saw that.
They allocated some figures to me.
You and I, distinguished Senator Abaribe, know that all politics is local. And the PDP was counting on the governors to help out in the presidential primary and, of course, other primaries. And, of course, they needed to grant the governors certain concessions. But here you are. If you wanted to have come back to the Senate, I'm sure maybe there would have been an arrangement that may favor you one way or the other, though I know that the governor wants to contest this same seat with you now. But you were looking to be the governorship candidate of the party. And, of course, you know that incumbents have the right to actually sort of nominate their successors, certainly through the party process.
Precisely.
Isn't it local politics here?
No. It's what you're saying is correct. And we never said that incumbents have no right to nominate anybody they want. All we are talking about was just a fair process. Give me as much chance as you give whoever you want to bring, and let him come and face me in the field. And that is exactly what we continually told the party. The party can never turn around and say today that that wasn't what we wanted. I never asked anybody for any iota of assistance. I never. I just
even
said,
as a minority leader,
even as a minority leader,
Senate, a ranking member
precisely
of the PDP.
As a ranking member of the PDP, as a man who has put his life on the line for PDP. I never asked for anything. I simply said, give us a chance. Just give us a chance. Let's go into the field. Why would you not do that? That is the point. And that's why I say that somehow, like Ike said, there seems to be a natural habitat for those, of course, morally challenging things.
People would have said, as a former deputy governor of Abia State, that you should have been accorded certain respect by the party, that it looks like the PDP just used and dumped you. Do you feel betrayed?
No, I don't. I only feel disappointed in some of the leadership of the PDP. I would not want to talk about them, but I think that the same Ika Aboni said that they were pecuniary hypnotized.
Interesting. Or dollarized.
Well, let me just say pecuniary hypnotized. And therefore, it was very difficult for them to, just like, Samuel Abonwa, when they asked him, I think it was here. I think it was here that you asked him, what happened? Why would your people not vote for you? And said that when people see some dollar, they forget their father's name.
Forget their father's name. Yeah.
So I think that's exactly where we found ourselves. But I do not actually bother so much about it. like Peter B said, I wanted to be governor. Not just to be governor, but to change the trajectory of the state. You understand? I think Peter said it with regard to that I'm desperate.
Yeah, that he's not desperate to be Nigerian
They're not desperate
president.
to be Nigerian president, but desperate. Yeah, so
to see the situation, the country change.
Precisely. It's exactly what I had. Desperate to see the situation change. And of course, when I got to Abga, actually, they now said, this is your natural habitat.
And not the Labour Party. Why didn't you follow Peter Obi to his Labour Party?
I think by then, Labour Party had already concluded the arrangements and so on and so forth. But of course, the natural habitat of us in the southeast is Abga. Yeah. And you can see from what has happened in all parties now, all that the parties have told the southeasterner is, you don't belong. You just don't belong. Yeah. And I think that what you need to do is that you make yourself to be important enough that you will be recognized. Because if you continue to be somebody who at all times they are looking at you as, well, just an appendage, they will never take you
using
serious.
you to win elections.
Precisely, they use you to win elections.
Saying about the Southeast.
Look at how they used me.
And that's why I'm coming back. I'm coming back to that, Senator Abaribe. Yes. A lot of your colleagues are wondering, how could an Abaribe leave the PDP? Why would an Abaribe be treated by the PDP this way? This same Abaribe that stood his neck out, challenged the Buhari administration, even previous governments, always been at the forefront. Now, some of your followers will also say that you do not have the politics of ideology, and that's why you're defecting. What would you say to them? Because they say if you are ideological, you will stay in the PDP and reform it and not jump out of the ship.
If I was non-ideological, I would go to APC. Because if you have the major ideologies, it will now be the conservative APC and the progressive non-APC. So I'm still in non-APC. So I'm ideologically inclined that I will never be part of the hegemony. And I tell you one other thing. What did we complain about for APC? We complained that the APC government, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, was not fair. Just was totally unfair to the people who are not from what he claimed is his own place. You remember that in 2016, immediately after he had come and he started making his appointments, I was the first person to raise it on the floor of the Senate. I said, you can have all the security apparatus under. He must be a Muslim, he must be a Northerner and all that. As if they're the only people who inhabit this country. And at the time that I was saying that, I was talking for the rest of Nigeria. Yeah, and I will still continue to talk for the rest of Nigeria. Even the
APC guys, sometimes when we have interviews with them, they'll be saying, yeah, it looks like Abaribe was actually right in some of the criticism. The good ones, they actually accepted them very well. But how about you, Senator Abaribe, misreading the politics of Abia State? You wanted to be governor. There's the old Bend there and then old Aba regions and all of that, where there's always this tectonic movement between these two and all others. Did you by chance not, use your political barometer to weigh in the Abia politics well before agreeing to go for the governorship?
No, I actually read it very well. The people in Abia, what they wanted was not the shift from one part to the other. It was the removal of the hegemonic clique that had held Abia down and moved from one hand to the other. And so when we now got to the point where the current governor also wanted to hand over to someone, we said, no, if we don't break this chain, Abia will continue to sink the way it has done and continue to be a laughingstock of other states in and around Nigeria. So that was the primary aim, which was let's cut this whole thing off. And in Abia, because we have 3 senatorial zones, and every senatorial zone has now tasted the governorship. We felt that if you bring the best person forward, which was what I was trying to do, then the people of Abia should be left to make that choice.
Yeah.
Not to give the people of Abia a option choice of saying it either this person or none.
Since you've come full cycle.
Precisely, since we have come full cycle. So it wasn't anything about where you come from or all that. But that is, like I said, I was desperate to be there, but desperate to make Abia better for everyone. And it can only be better if you cut that, what do you call it now, godfatherism and those type of things. Of course, in almost every state, all of them try to do it. And of course, Nigeria will not be better if we don't break those kind of chains. That is the issue of the moment in front of each and every Nigerian today. Because we have seen that you bring anybody, he's tied to the apron strings of who brought him, and nothing works.
Okay, now, Okeze Beazu, the incumbent governor of Abia State, is one person that we had thought that having been in the, in the circles, in your circles, both nationally and then locally, that there will be some good rapport between you and him. What really happened, actually? Because even when you made your announcement, your bid for the governorship, you took time to seek his blessings, you attended some functions with him. I could see that you're trying to romance him, actually, to ensure that at least there's that atmosphere of respect for each other. But what really happened between your relationship with him?
Well, I don't think that I'm the person that will have to answer that question. Any day that you have him in front of you, then you can answer. But one thing is very simple. When some people went to confront him and say, why? Just exactly this question that you asked. I say, oh no, you know, the senator, I respect him very much, but he comes from the same place with me, and because he comes from the same place with me, he cannot be governor. And then they asked him the follow-up question, which he couldn't answer. Okay, if he comes from the same place with you, and you don't want him to be governor, why do you want to be senator? Since you're also coming from the same place. Does it mean that there are other local governments also within the same Abia South don't deserve to be senator? So, and of course, he couldn't answer that question. I do not know what happens to when you get into the executive office. In fact, David Mark asked me one day, he said, I would like to use you as an experiment. I said, let me see whether you can get there and change. Because he looked at something happens once you become...
When you get into executive
office. I think maybe because everybody kowtows, everybody begs you, everybody, even your fathers lie down on the ground for you, then maybe you start having delusions. You know, that's what I would call it. But that's not a question that I can answer.
Okay, but you still have a good relationship with him personally?
I don't have any adverse relationship because, I mean, I respect your office. I come to you and I say, let us do this. But if you now say, oh, that you don't accept, all I asked him was, let us have a level playing ground. I don't care if you're bringing your younger brother. I don't care. But let the person get to the field with me and test himself with the public. So the problem now is, of course, you don't even want it to happen. You now get the party and then, of course, all those things. For me, I'm in Abga.
And you're going
I'm the senatorial candidate for Abga.
Both of you are going to slug it out.
He's going to be in the senatorial candidate. Let us now, we will now meet and let the public choose between me and him.
And you think you have the capacity to withstand a sitting governor?
Well, the point really is that if it's in terms of going inside your bedroom and writing the list of a few people, you can do that. But the public, you're going to have to, the public will have to make up their mind about you.
And do you think it's going to be a referendum on what you have done, not just for Nigeria, but for the Southeast?
It's going to be a referendum on both of us. His performance as governor and my performance as a former Senate minority leader and somebody who talks about matters concerning the Igbo race.
Yes, and of course, I want us to go on the break now. When we come back, we'll be talking the general issues now. The Igbo race, national politics, and of course, the presidential candidates who have emerged.
My pleasure.
All right, you're still watching the Arise interview. When we return, the conversation continues with Senator Enyinaya Abaribe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the conversations. I'm Sumner Sambo, and of course my guest is still the former Senate Minority Leader, who is still the serving Senator, and the Abia South Senatorial candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, Senator Eyinnaya Abaribe. And we've been taking a look at all the issues that led to his defection from the main opposition, PDP, to ABGA. And of course, we thank you for still being with us here. Just before we go into the national issues, what do we now do with all your promises to revamp ABIA, your blueprints and all of that? What happens to all those dreams?
It will not be a waste. I'm in touch with the candidate for ABGA, and we speak virtually every day. I'm assuming that he also has a blueprint. And so what we're going to do is to check and balance all the blueprints and say, what is in the best interest of Abia State? How do we now move the state beyond where it is today? And I think we'll all work together to get on that.
Okay,
yes.
And moving on to other critical issues now. How could the National Assembly have made such a mistake by not allowing statutory delegates to vote? How did all of you get into that situation whereby you didn't take a second look at that clause?
And I think what happened from all our investigations was that that section in the old act, section 87.7, was not tampered with. And so because it wasn't the one that was not tampered with, nobody took time to say, where are all the ones that were not? You know what they were doing is that, okay, the ones you tamper with, you now delete, something like that. And so I think that there was just an oversight because it wasn't tampered with. Everybody assumed that it was there. It was when the interpretation,
the controversial interpretation,
that came up, that everybody was, what's going on here? And so they said, okay, if it is that, why don't we simply restore that 87.7? And of course, you know what now happened? When they sought to restore it, the president refused to sign.
He was paying all of you back.
And he said he was going to pay us. But look, this is law. You don't pay people back in law.
But you also use the law for your own calculations to fight the governors.
Where?
Well, by trying to see how you reduce the influence, cut the influence of the governors.
Where? That is the point. And
at the end, you ended up shooting yourself.
Sambo, it's a general accusation that has no basis in the fact. Nobody fought anybody. I'm in the opposition. I will not be part of saying, let us fight anybody. Why? So, at what point and what was the problem? The problem was 84.4, where there was this interpretation on who was a civil servant and who was now a public servant. That's just it. And we said, you cannot be a public servant. For example, a serving minister, and you come out like these ones have done now to run for president without resigning. For the civil service, of course, they have their own regulations also. And we felt that that was a lacuna because there was nothing spoken about public servants, and that's how we inserted that. And some people mischievously interpreted it. Okay, assuming without conceding that somebody like the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Transport, Rotimi Amechi won the candidacy of APC while still being a minister. How would that work? Assuming, without conceding, that the governor of the central bank, who we understood some people were running around to try to make him candidate, had also succeeded. So he will now be holding the two portfolios, because there was nothing in the law that also said you needed to resign if you win. So those things.
But where they were focusing on the constitutional interpretation,
precisely,
which says that it's 30 days before the general election that they would have to resign.
A civil servant. And I think that is the point that everybody tended to miss. The distinction between the two. So when they now try to merge themselves with civil servants, say, oh no, we can stay there for 1 month. And we said, but you can be fired tomorrow. The civil servant cannot be fired. So there are two different things or categories of people. And we needed to make that distinction. Never mind all these later day interpretations that they come up with. It's not true.
But do you think...
And also, just to put a second one, a statutory delegate was elected to his office. Is that not so?
Yes.
I was elected as a senator. So how can I now make a law to exclude myself? That wasn't what was intended.
Yeah, but the governors also had the leeway to be able to appoint some other statutory delegates, which is what many of you were afraid or fearful of.
No.
Because of the party's other appointees, which may be more than the elected.
No. The party guidelines already had specified how governors could bring people or not. That had nothing to do with us. It was already in the party guidelines. If you check every party guideline, you will see that. In fact, the problem we had was also tested in court. I think Dogwan, somebody in the House of Rep, they went to court. And the court says that was a very wrong interpretation. And I also feel personally that that interpretation of elected delegates was a wrong interpretation. But even at that, they still turned around to want to manipulate that process. And that is where it becomes very, very difficult for us to follow. Okay. So you say that it's three persons. I don't care whether it's 3 persons. So let the person come and do an election too. And then you go behind in some room in government house and write out a list. And then you bring it out. And I, as the minority leader and as a senator, I didn't know who was brought up from my ward to come and vote. How could that happen?
Let's be clear. Each of the ad hoc delegates were meant to be elected.
Precisely. They were meant to be elected, not selected somewhere. So how could a minority leader and a senator not know who was supposed to be from
but the governors said these elections were held and people were elected. So you were disputing these elections.
I will have said something now, but because it's a subject of a court case, I will say no. But bear in mind that we are challenging this in court. And the court will eventually have to give a ruling whether you could stay in your backyard and write something or you did an election.
Okay, so we'll have to move on to other issues now.
Thank you.
Clearly, these ad hoc delegates and statutory delegates affected lawmakers. Some people didn't come back. Some are aggrieved at the moment and all of that. But we've seen presidential candidates coming out of the country from these big political parties. I mean, including yours, Professor Peter Omiadi is your own presidential candidate in ABGA. Now, let's talk about your feelings as to the decisions of running mates that's ongoing and the debate as to whether we can have a Christian ticket or a Muslim ticket. Your own party, ABGA, has got someone who is a Muslim. I mean, your presidential candidate. Yeah, he sent someone to me, and I saw that clearly. But in the bigger parties, including your own former party, there's that feeling that's there. And of course, it looks like the Southeast has been is being kicked out again out of PDP, like some will say, despite their sacrifices.
Well, let me start from the National Assembly before we delve into this. For the first time, the National Assembly, I think about 70% not coming back. Think about it. There's no institutional memory. There's no, and why? Because some people who are governors, who are controlling the process decide that this one will not come, this one will not come, irrespective of whether you are going to be useful there or not.
Yeah.
And so we're losing so much. And of course, it has never happened that the majority leader and the minority leader at the same time quit their parties.
Yeah, I mean,
that should send
that's a
worries to most people in this country that we're not getting it right. That in Igbo we say that na woge aiga fecha mpa mo abia bani. Let me explain in this. It's not when we pass the evil forest where the spirit is supposed to, then it catches you outside of the evil forest. That's exactly what has happened. We thought we had passed all this stage. We thought that we had advanced, only to find ourselves several years backwards. So, what could have led us to this?
Isn't it because you weren't favored? Because if the selected ad hoc delegates, for example, favored you, or Senator Enyinaya Abaribe, who is the Senate leader that resigned, wouldn't you have accepted them?
So, that is what and where we differ, me and you. Because you are now assuming that whatever is selected will work. Why? If you had let the political process and the elective process throw up people, then they would have been much more independent. And we could see it happen everywhere. All the people from the Southeast, 95 of them, couldn't even make a statement to vote for a Southeasterner. How?
Which has led to
it has led to
grievances.
So much. So yeah, because what it means,
including even the APC, about 295
same thing in
them.
APC. So you ask yourself, if you really want to make a statement in this country, it only tells you that the caliber of delegates that were chosen were mainly yes men and women. An election doesn't throw up yes men. An election throws up somebody who has an independent voice. So,
who knows the feelings
I think that is also good in a way, because, like I said, people always assume that when you're sitting in an office, you always want that office, and because of that office, you're ready to swallow anything. But you could see, majority leader, he walked away. Minority leader, I walked away. We left the office.
Including someone like Senator Alero.
Precisely. To show that office is not the important thing. What is important is the Nigerian people. That is actually where we are today. But if we go forward to talk about, I've heard all manners of
permutations,
this and that, and I don't believe and I don't agree with anybody who will tell you that we do not have very deep chasm everywhere in the country. And of course it was perpetrated by the APC government. If the APC government didn't start from beginning by dividing all of us by where you come from and all the appointments and everything, which led us to continue shouting that this was causing a big rift within the country. Now they're trying to repair it. How are you going to repair something that is already that deep? So, if the APC wakes up and says that they are going to do a Muslim, whatever, of course, what it will lead to is abysmal failure. Because which Christian will trust a Muslim ticket? Which Muslim will trust a Christian ticket? Which one? Because you have already evoked all the base feelings and sentiments in people, and it will need some persons to come in and try to repair this rift, and it will take time. This thing started long ago. You could remember that at a particular point it was myself, Autumn, and Governor Wike who were shouting all over the place. Of course, Governor Wike and Governor Tom had immunity. I didn't have any. I was sitting down here shouting.
Except parliamentary immunity.
Except parliamentary immunity. So whatever I say inside the chamber, you can't hold me outside for it. But that is the point. the country is deeply divided. In order for you to repair the rift within the country, you must bring all parts together. So if you're a Muslim, good, you have to find a Christian. If you're a Christian, good, you have to find a Muslim, which is why APGA got a Muslim, so that it can complement the APGA presidential candidate.
Okay, Senator Abaribe, you are a ranking federal lawmaker. You have talked about several bills, motions about Nigeria and all of that. When you see a PDP bringing an Atiku Abubakar, who is a Muslim from the Northeast, and you see an APC bringing Tinubu, who's from the Southwest, a Yoruba, he's a Muslim also, and then you see a Peter Obi coming from the Southeast, who is a Christian as presidential candidate of Labour Party, and maybe a Kwankwanso coming from the Northwest as a presidential candidate, and he's Fulani. For the first time, we will be having some of the top contenders being a Fulani, a Yoruba, an Igbo, and then a Hausa. When you see this, don't you think it may also lead to some ethnic sentiments and problems, and that may result in security challenges for us in 2023?
Sumna, you didn't add a Peter Umade from APGA,
okay,
also
Peter
from the Southeast.
Yeah, also from the Southeast.
So you needed to add that.
Yes.
Now, let's put it this way. It's just the way that the politics of the country has brought all of us. And like I said before, it will need beyond this eminent gentleman that you have mentioned, a coming together of most of those parties so that you can have a holistic outlook in Nigeria. I mean, when I was minority leader, I mean, I had total support from everybody because they could see that whatever agenda we had was a national agenda. And that's why they found it very difficult to let me go. But like I said, it's a difficult thing. It's a very, very difficult thing. I think we are all falling back to our ethnic enclaves. But that is how the cookie crumbles, like they said. We have found ourselves here. Now what we need is, where is that person who will look beyond this and not follow the pattern that had been set by APC? It was the pattern set by APC that deeply divided us. And we should never misread that fact.
Does the Southeast feel betrayed by the PDP after having opened this ticket? And Igbos, I'm asking this again, in an exodus away from the PDP to other political parties, because we see APGA and Labour Party attracting lots of Igbo intellectuals and voters. Of course,
the Southeast feels that PDP did not treat them well. And the reason why I most of the time don't want to talk about it is, I said, nobody say, oh, it's sour grapes, oh, because he didn't get whatever he wanted in PDP. But of course, I didn't get what I want in PDP. I got it somewhere else. Because my people prefer me to any other thing. And they know that whatever I'm talking about is about fairness, justice, equity. PDP did not do that. But I think we should forget PDP and all that. They are going to see, when we get to the elections, the consequence of these decisions.
Because we are hearing again that the presidential candidate is not picking someone as his VP from the Southeast. That those permutations are there. So I want to say,
well, I don't know.
Despite all the sacrifices
whatever PDP does, that's their business. Doesn't concern me. I'm in APGA, and I'm going forward.
But a lot of persons will also be troubled by the fact that you, having been seen as a sort of nationalist, is retreating back into an ethnic cocoon and into a party that's more regional and tribal, if you may say. What would you say to such an accusation that you
have
lost your national garb?
I would say that they are very wrong. I've not lost my national garb. I'm going to be in the Senate of the Federal Republic, and I'm going to make contributions nationally. That is the point. If you're a senator, you will drop all that behind you. But beyond that, I started by telling you that some people think that, that they will commit an offense, they will breach the law, they will do everything, and they tell you, don't worry, you know, you're supposed to be part of whatever. The same syndrome of, if you can't beat them, join them. So why don't you stay, and then we will find you something. And the serial breaches continue. But when somebody, and that is a metaphor for the rest of Nigeria, part of the reasons why we have not done well in this country is that people are not punished for wrong behavior.
Especially if you're a governor.
Precisely. People are not punished for wrong behavior. You just do what you feel like, and then they leave you. If people were punished for wrong behavior, maybe people will start to do the right thing. If parties are punished for wrong behavior, maybe parties will start to do the right thing. Then tomorrow, when you have to look at okay, these are our guidelines. Let us follow rigidly our guidelines. Because it's not like it's not there. The laws are there. The rules are there. You just refuse to follow it. Okay. Because nobody punishes you for it.
Now, Senator Abaribe, are you not afraid of losing an election after, a very long time of having lost one? Because Abga is not popular in Abia State.
Who says? Abga is very, very popular.
Well,
you need to see the governor. You need to see the surge of people who are all moving into Abga because of me. They're saying, oh, no. If this is where this man is, because they trust me. That is not the point. And everybody say, well, that means that is good. Abga has always been there.
And you are challenging an incumbent.
Who is an incumbent? I am the incumbent. The person is coming to challenge me.
Well, he has executive powers. You
don't.
Right,
he can have executive powers, but Bivas is there. Results are going to come from each polling booth. So what are you going to do?
Do you have the dollars to withstand?
I don't know how. I will not spend anything. I probably will spend 1,000 of what they will spend, but they will still lose. The matters are very, very clear, because we are going to go into the field. And when we go into the field, like I said, it's going to be a referendum on what you have done. People are going to look at me, of course. What is it that I have done? People are going to look at you, of course. What is it that you have done? And it will be a referendum on both of us. And I said, I am the incumbent. I'm the person that you need to dislodge, not the other way around.
What do you think of Abga's chances at the national elections?
At the national elections, I think that they will do very well. Reason is that everybody has now seen that the two major parties maybe don't bother themselves about Nigeria, but bother more about perpetuation of themselves in office. And that is a recipe for failure. And Nigerians are clearer in their minds now, more open, have far more information, and the electoral process does not favor anyone again. Before, it would be that if a state government, you can say, okay, this is my capital, Umuahia. I will seize the office, I will compromise everybody. But then, the results are coming direct into the servers in Abuja.
So that's the legacy you are living as a federal
Precisely, as a federal lawmaker. If you remember, I fought and I fought and I fought for it. And even caused on the floor of the Senate for us to go into division over this matter. And I feel very proud when it's now like it is a given.
Well, you just have to monitor it before it ends. As we try to round up these conversations in 60 seconds, what would you say of the Buhari-led administration as it goes into its final year?
A complete failure. Buhari has disappointed everybody, disappointed Nigerians, disappointed those who thought when he was coming in 2015 that this was going to be a man to turn around the country. You have now serially turned Nigeria into a killing field. You have now turned Nigeria into a poverty capital of the world. You have now turned Nigeria into a debtor nation of unimaginable proportion. You have now turned Nigeria into the fact that we have to borrow to even live today, because everything that we earn as an exporting country, we use it to pay
debt service.
So, at what point will you say that there's anything that Buhari and his government has done that you will be very proud about? And they say, when we now see them come and talk, oh, you have done well, like they did during their during their primaries. Okay. Everybody came to say, oh, Mr. President, Mr. President. And I will just laugh and say, these people are living far away from reality. The reality today is that Buhari has taken us from 100 to 10. We now need somebody who is going to quietly move.
The ruling party will definitely dispute that.
Well, let them dispute it, but they have to come with the same facts.
Okay, in 30 seconds, what would you say is your legacy as a minority leader of the Senate?
Electoral act that has now stipulated that votes will count through electronic transmission of results.
Okay, almost. Thank you so much, Senator Enyinaya Abaribe, former minority leader.
No, I'm still minority leader of the ABGA.
Well, ABGA just has only you in the Senate.
I'm still minority of myself.
Okay, we must thank you so much for being on the show. Of course, you represent Abia South in the federal parliament, the Senate specifically, and of course, you are also a senatorial candidate in the 2023 polls, and you'll be slugging it out with Governor Okezie Ekpeazu, who is the incumbent governor of Abia. We can only wish you well. Hope that the process is not dollarized, as we keep hearing every now and then. We must thank you for being on the show. Well, that has been for this edition of the Arise interview, a one-on-one with Senator Enyinaya Abaribe. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. I'm Sumner Sanders.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.